you, Willie, for the very kind introduction. President Ramos, Excellencies, friends, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, all of you, for coming. I think we filled the room. Salamat po. So with your permission, I will begin. Okay. According to Nouriel Roquesser, the universe is not made of atoms. It is made of stories. That is why I am so grateful to Professor Yutaka Katayama for discovering yours truly. By his discovery, we have a story to share. His discovery came a bit late. I am now 3 years into being an octogenarian. I can hardly get up this stage. I have to ask this young girl to help me. Thank you. Oh, I'm lost now. I said I am 3 years into being an octogenarian, I found it. I am not, of course, complaining. In fact, I must be thankful that towards the end of my life, a kind soul from Japan found me. In grateful appreciation, we dedicated this story to Professor Yutaka and the youth everywhere, the generations to come, which, according to him, is the purpose of his discovery crusade. He told me that the story he discovered in me is not the only story. For the sake of everyone everywhere, there must be more stories waiting to be discovered, and much more in the making. His dream is to discover more stories, and where possible, encourage and nurture their growth and development. Example, every year, for so many years, since we met in 2001, until his retirement a few years ago, he used to bring his graduate students in Kobe University to Manila, among others, to have an encounter with me. His purpose is to help create an idea environment that will have the capacity to elevate the quality of the human condition. This is his personal mission, his obsession, his crusade. Thank you, Professor, for thinking the way you do. And thank you for coming all the way from Japan just to grace this small occasion. Salamat po. You know, he arrived at 1:30. Wang is not allowed, but I asked Gerald Valeroso to give him my wang. That's why he arrived almost on that. So, he is the first wang. So, Mr. President, forgive me for violating. Okay. So, please allow me to present to Professor Yutaka the draft of the first part of this speech. This one I'm reading is the draft, to remind him of his impact on the souls he touched. So what I did, this draft, when I wrote this, is this one. I frame it with all the errors. Now, Professor, with your permission, please come forward. This is all you get, is scratch paper. Thank you for your patience. May I continue? For their discernment and generous spirit, may I thank you to University and the Center for Southeast Asian Studies for providing, you have heard this already, but I'd like to repeat, Marites, Daniel, and Vito, the gift of space, time, and support to write this book. May I also thank Professor Yutaka Katayama once more, Dr. Hiromu Simiso, Dr. Carolyn Howe, and Dr. Dondon Paderanga, who helped her all the way. My deep gratitude goes to the Asia Foundation of the United States, represented by Dr. Stephen Root. Steve, are you around? Steve? And to the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung of Germany, represented by Dr. Peter Koppinger, for supporting the research for this book. Marami pong salamat sa inyong lahat. I am equally thankful to these individual donors for their generosity. Econnect Filipinas, Obert, Lina, thank you, and Willie Paraiba. Former Secretary of Defense Nonong Cruz Jr. Nonong, are you around? Marilyn Dangilan of the World Food Program. This is the sister of Marites. I think she thought we really in need of support, so even the sister helped. Bernadine C. Bernadine, are you here? I have not met you. Bernadine C. Romy Lopez Bernardo. John Ford. Where is John? I saw him. Rene Lechaco, your friend. Lechaco and Ambassador Dicky Yuiko, Speaker Joe de Venecia. Thank you, sir. And of course, former President Fidel V. Ramos. Justice Antonio Carpio, Tony here, took care of the ebook version. Lisa Almonte, are you here, Lisa? Made printing of the book easier. Richelle, are you here, young girl? Ann Cabreros did terrific research and fact-checking. And Edna Bautista assisted in many ways. There were many more involved in the production of this book, but time constraint does not allow me to mention all. To all of them, my fervent thanks. This little book project turned out to be a multinational enterprise. Without all of you, this book would not have been possible. So marami pong salamat. Perhaps, before I conclude, I should say something about Endless Journey. This book suggests that nation building, as stated earlier by earlier speaker, is a continuous struggle. It is a collective work in progress, primarily because the raw materials used consist of the best and the brightest, as well as the less endowed, the richest and the poorest, the most powerful and the most powerless, and everybody in between. And it is made more interesting and challenging by the reality that everyone, without exception, regardless of status in life, regardless of color or creed, suffer from the same human imperfections. To illustrate, last December, Pope Francis in his Christmas greetings to the Vatican Curia, which is supposed to be composed of the best and the brightest cardinals, bishops, priests, and nuns of the Universal Church, reminded them of their sins or ailments. Pope Francis listed 15 ailments, but let me mention just a few. Number one in his list is the feeling of the Curia of being immortal, indispensable, immune. The last, number 15, is the desire, this is the Curia, to acquire more material things and to show off. Number 8 is what he called existential schizophrenia, meaning living a double life. I understand Pope Benedict XVI resigned, among others, because of these Curia infirmities. These ailments are not the monopoly of the Vatican Curia. We, you and I, suffer the same ailments, perhaps even more and even worse. This is why nation building is a protracted struggle. The book calls it an endless journey. It's like a relay without end. The most we can do is pass on the baton to the next runner, meaning the next generation. The baton is symbolic of the nation's building block. To be useful, the baton or building block must be forged in terms of the core values our martyrs and heroes died for: dignity, honor, freedom, justice, self-determination, tolerance, peace, malasakit. The book claims that if we articulate our identity, our meaning, as well as our goals, our purposes, in terms of these core values, in terms of malasakit, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish despite our imperfections or because of them. By these core values, we are enabled to work for the improvement of the nation's human condition, meaning less corruption, less patronage, less poverty, less injustice, less inequality, less violence, less mamasapano, less albarca, less atimunan, less Carino grandstand, hostage rescue style. By these core values, everyone will be inspired to hunger and thirst for a life lived only when it is right to live. In this context, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF, and the Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters, or BIFF, who massacred the SAF 44, should have matched the valor of their fallen enemy by caring for the wounded and treating the dead with honor and dignity, rather than okay, I will continue. Sorry. Rather than dishonor their fallen MILF 18 and 5 civilians by their brutal and unfeeling inhumanity. Clap your hands. The ultimate sacrifices of the 67 precious Filipino lives in Masasapano, that is 44 plus 18 plus 5, 67. The ultimate sacrifices of the 67 precious Filipino lives in Masasapano should bind our people, Christians, Muslims, Lumans, together as one nation, one soul. Ito po ang panalangin ng Endless Journey. Marami pong salamat.